Hi, welcome back to VFX Artists React. Roll the clip. Right now, it feels like YouTube's saturated, right? There's so many people making stuff, but it's not saturated at all. It's always been easy to break out on YouTube as long as you can.
Ooh, let's talk about that.
20,000 views, 28,000 views, 60,000 views in one day. What? That's crazy. No. It's not the first principles of YouTube. It's not even the first principles of filmmaking. It's the first principles of being interesting.
The biggest category was perspective on AI. And if you're aware that you've alienated a portion of your audience based on your perspective on AI.
I have a lot of feelings about AI, because this is how you hook people into watching somebody do anything. The first thing is...
Today on the Colin and Samir Show, we're joined by Niko. He's one of the founders of Corridor Crew, which is a group of filmmakers and VFX artists who have been building one of YouTube's most creative and long-lasting channels for the past 15 years. The Corridor takes movie magic and special effects, and they break it down in a way that's fun, funny, and accessible. Their most popular series is called VFX Artists React, where they sit on a couch and they analyze the best and worst visual effects in movies and TV. And they've had major guests join them on that couch to react to VFX. They're also artists themselves. They actually started with this channel called Corridor Digital, where they made short films, viral skits, and they're still doing that to this day. Between the two channels, Corridor Digital and Corridor Crew, they have over 16 million subscribers. We had such a good time talking to Niko because he's this YouTube veteran who has gone through a lot of different iterations to find what works on the platform, has found this format, but also still retains space for these creative experiments. Now, before we jump into this conversation with Niko, I want to thank the sponsor of this episode, Lexar. Now, if you're a creator, you're definitely familiar with Lexar. You've probably used one of their SD cards or maybe one of their SSDs. So if you're anything like us, you're dealing with a ton of footage. Like when we sat down to record with Niko, we record across 4 cameras for over 2 hours. So our bottleneck isn't actually our creativity, it's not our ideas, it's workflow. And that's where the Lexar Professional Workflow Dock comes in. It's a customizable 6-bay dock for serious creators. It lets you mix and match card readers and SSD modules so you can offload footage fast and back everything up without breaking rhythm. So when we finish recording, we take all of our cards, put them in the workflow dock, and back them up all at once. And then we get to editing faster. And it's a really powerful machine. It's powered by Thunderbolt 4. It has up to 40 gigabits per second in transfer speeds. And it's literally designed to let you edit in 8K without like melting your gear. Now, if you're someone who edits on the go, they also have the Lexar Workflow Go dock. It's small enough to just throw in a bag, and you don't even need a laptop. You can use your phone to back up the files immediately when you're done shooting. So if you're a creator, check out the full workflow lineup at Lexar.com. It will totally change your creative process. And thanks again to Lexar for powering our creative ideas and for sponsoring this episode. Now for our conversation with Niko from Corridor Crew. All right, Niko, welcome to the show.
Hi.
What's up?
What's up, everybody? What's up, everybody out there? Hi.
Dude, how long have you guys been doing Corridor?
We've been doing Corridor since 2008.
2008?
Yeah.
Was
not
that
the YouTube channel?
Not the YouTube channel.
Just the studio Corridor, and then became the YouTube channel in 2010.
Became the YouTube channel in 2010,
Yeah.
so it's been 15 years
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
YouTube.
Wait, it's May. Wait. The very first video we uploaded, we started the channel in May.
Oh, wow.
It might be our 15th birthday, like today.
Wow. Wow. That's crazy.
I need to check. We should probably do something at Corridor to celebrate.
You're gone on the day of the 15th
I know.
anniversary.
Because we're all talking about, we had our big 10 million subscriber point that we hit last fall, which we were trying to hit before our 15th birthday. And then we hit that and we're like, yay. And we all stopped thinking about the 15th birthday. So yeah.
10 million on Corridor Digital.
Yep.
6 million on Corridor Crew.
Mm-hmm.
What are the other channels?
Corridor Cast.
Corridor Cast.
And that's really all the other channels. But we did very briefly have a kids animation channel. We were doing space science animations. Cool. That mostly was headed up by Jake and another guy from the company. And we did briefly have a channel called the Guillotine Channel, where we built a full-size guillotine. It started off as a joke. The whole idea is they wanted to build a full-size guillotine for a video. And they're like, what if we made a channel where the whole goal was to get enough ad revenue to buy craft beer?
That's hilarious.
We made like $6. So
diversions like that are absolutely necessary for a creative career.
Yeah.
At some point, you're going to have an idea like that, and you're like, I just got to follow it. I got to see what happens here.
I do want to talk about inflection points for you guys as Corridor over the past 15 years of building this business. Like, was there like a video that you uploaded where you go, all right, that's the inflection point. Now we figured this out?
Right. So I actually thought about this a lot in the car right here, and it takes about an hour to drive from Glendale to here. So I had a lot of time to think about it. I think thinking about things as an inflection point, at least for the way stuff happened with the corridor, is it's not dangerous, but it's the wrong way, I think, to think about things, because if you approach things like waiting for an inflection point or trying to be like, okay, this is, things were flat and then this one thing happened and it spiked and it went viral and it popped. If that's what you're waiting for, it's an inflection point, then once you have your video pop and it goes viral, the next 2 to 3 weeks are gonna be the worst weeks of your life. Because it turns out that having one video go viral doesn't mean your whole business changed direction, right? I would say the closest things, because we have lots of inflection points, it's all about being consistent, and it's art. Some things are going to resonate, some things aren't. You're doing experiments all the time, meaning some things will pop and some things won't. But just because a video pops doesn't mean your business has changed. That said, when we were starting YouTube, Sam and I had already been making videos together since we were 14 years old and starting in 8th grade. So by the time we're starting YouTube, we're 22 years old now. So, we've already been making videos for 8 years. There wasn't a YouTube, but we were putting them online. We had forums, where we talked to other people about our videos. We were part of communities online. So we were already doing the online video thing, even the shorts thing to a certain extent, before any platform existed for that. We'd have to pay for our own video hosting service. And that was such a big deal when there was, I don't know if you guys remember iFilm.com, they had the promise of being able to upload your own videos and you'd have to pay for hosting. And then YouTube comes along. It's you upload your videos, you have to pay for hosting, Vimeo. And, YouTube pulled it off somehow. They lost billions of dollars, but Google decided to buy them and just take that loss. So we were already making videos, and we had just finished shooting a feature film up in Vancouver. And this is back in 2008. And going into 2009, we're working on the feature film, but we'd already done a bunch of shorts, action shorts, things like that. And we're I'm feeling an itch. I got to make another action short. We've been working on this feature film for 2 years. And so we went and, started shooting something. And as we were putting it together, it was Freddie Wong, because we were all housemates at the time working on this movie. He's like, why don't you guys, because we loved Call of Duty, Modern Warfare, for the first Modern Warfare had come out, Call of Duty 4, and we loved that game, played it a ton. And he's like, why don't you just, instead of just having your short be a bunch of army guys fighting, why don't you just make it a Call of Duty short? See you don't have to change anything at all. It just, you give it something that people can connect to, and now there's a reason for an audience to watch it. It has more reach. And so we're yeah, okay, let's try that. And, we dropped the first short. It hit #1 on Reddit. People were talking about it. And it's okay, adding that little bit of Call of Duty, IP in there, even though it's not our IP or anything like that, but that little bit of fan film, just hit a way bigger audience. And that really informed a lot of the kind of video game themed videos that we made early on. The thing we'd always say is you take something familiar and just give it a new twist.
Yeah.
It's people like video games, give it a new twist. Hey, here's a cinematic version of it that doesn't suck. There's a new twist. And that was, kind of what we did. So I'd say that first Call of Duty was kind of an inflection point. But from there, it's we didn't make any money. It didn't even go on our channel. It went on the Freddie W, now Rocket Jump channel, right? And then the second one went on their channel too.
But that moment actually teaches you a lot about the internet and internet filmmaking.
Right.
What you just said of familiarity, but give it a twist is actually still... all these years later, it's the core of how to make a YouTube video, right? It's is this format familiar, but how do I give it my own twist? How to make it a little unexpected?
Exactly. Yeah. And there's
because that still exists, right? GTA in real life. Obviously you guys have done that. Yeah. Ryan Trahan did that. That still exists, that format.
Yeah.
But that exists in even your Reacts format, right? Reacts is a familiar concept.
Right. We didn't invent that format at all.
And then you look at someone even Eric, and you look at some of the stuff he's doing, and you're oh, he's doing Punk'd, right? When he's got an earpiece in and he's doing a prank show, he's doing Punk'd. It's a familiar format that's, whether it's Punk'd or it's Impractical Jokers, right? It's this thing has existed for a long time. It's just putting a different twist on it.
Exactly. The video where you guys fix... The Rock. What is the title of that one?
Yes. Fixing the worst VFX shot of all time.
Yes, exactly. Scorpion King.
Yep.
So you're fixing Scorpion King. It reminded me so much of Pimp My Ride on MTV because you're basically Exhibit and you're sitting there and you're asking all the guys what do you got for me?
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
What do you got for me with the fire? And they're well, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to add this element and this. And you're great.
Yeah.
What do you got for me for the face? It just reminded me so much of Pimp My Ride.
We'd had to become more careful about using the term fix when doing those kind of projects, because as our channel has grown with the Visual Effects Artists React series, coming out and being like, we fixed this, has not sat well with people all the time. So either fans of the thing or the actual artists and things like, what do you mean you fixed it? We worked on that for months. Yeah. And you just like, it's like, screw you. And it's like, whoa, sorry. Yeah. Just being funny. You know? Yeah. So we've tried to change that vernacular a little bit more recently when we do that kind of stuff. But we did fix the Scorpion King.
It's also like, whenever there's something kind of like another great part of YouTube is like when there's something kind of dumb, but that people put a lot of effort into, it's like really appreciated. Yeah. Right. And
describes a lot of the work on our channel.
I think that's like, that also makes it feel like a friend group. Cause you like, I don't know, at least with my friend group, sometimes we come up with like bits and like just play jokes on each other or pranks or whatever. And like when you put a ton of effort into it, it's very funny.
Right.
Right. And so I think that plays into like the friend group nature of it, of like, you guys put so much effort into this kind of dumb bit, but it also showcases your skills and the craft. Like that is an amazing YouTube video.
Well, thank you.
It kind of reminds me of the old world of YouTube of like, do you remember the David Blaine comedy?
Yep.
You know exactly what I'm talking about?
Yep. The guy's walking down the street and there's like the two other guys. He like puts his friend on the roof and like puts the other guy in the trunk of the car. Like, stop it, David Blaine.
So
leave us alone.
That was a glorious time of YouTube because it was just like, I don't know. It reminds me of that time, like where it's just so kind of accessible, but still like just so well done. Well, like so thoughtful. The concept is thoughtful. And that's what matters.
Cool. Yeah.
I think we've hit like two key tenets here of familiarity with a twist and then accessibility.
Yeah.
Right. Being like core reasons why almost everything that you guys have made has resonated. I wonder if there's other core tenets that you think about.
I do have one more, which is to say, you yourself need to be able to offer a unique perspective. This is something we struggle with a lot because, like, for example, we had this one idea for video. I loved this idea for video. It's called Bob Ross with Sauce. And the idea was that we were going to go to the grocery. We're going to pick a Bob Ross movie or video, you know, a lesson. We're going to go to the grocery store and we're going to pick out our paints, which is to be sauces. You can pick out whatever sauces you want. Chocolate sauce, mayonnaise, Tabasco, whatever you need for your painting. And you come back and we're going to follow the Bob Ross tutorial, but you're going to paint with condiments. Great idea. My painting actually turned out pretty good. Not from a taste perspective, but from a aesthetic perspective. And the video just underperformed so hard. Why? Because we're not painters. Who's interested in watching us paint? I have nothing new to add to the world of painting. You know, it's like, you know, you can watch us have fun as personalities doing this activity. But then again, they're also not like activities or not an activity. We're not personalities necessarily. Like we are, but like people don't really tune into Corridor just to watch me say things, you know, and just, you know, act and be funny. They usually watch Corridor to watch us actually do something specific that's interesting. And we just happen to be able to carry it on camera a little bit. And it's really like, you know, that lesson really sticks, which is like, if you're going to make a video, especially if it's like an interesting video, you need to find something that you yourself bring to the table that only you can bring to the table. Like, another example is we were talking about trying to do like a little game jam like contest where you find two teams that both make a video game. None of us are video game designers. So why would anybody want to watch that video? You know, some people would, but that's until you can find like a reason that makes it unique and special for you to try doing it. And there's a reason now for people to watch that video. Like that's where like it actually clicks.
So do you guys have kind of like a maybe filtration system or some type of system to evaluate ideas? Where like you come up with the video game idea, but then you sit in a room and you're like, but wait, we don't.
Yeah, it's kind of me and Sam are like, we're all filters, but Sam and I tend to be like a little bit more of the filter. So like, you know, we all get together, we throw out ideas. Like I said, we run on bits. We run a bit for a while. It's really funny. Maybe we turn it into a video. But every once in a while, it's like, you know, it's like, I don't know, guys. I don't know. I think we should try a different idea. Like it tends to come from me and Sam, but it can come from anybody in the studio. Yeah.
I want to talk about VFX Artists React.
Okay.
That to me, from the outside looking in, feels like a major
It's definitely an inflection point.
That feels like an inflection point. And we always talk to, you know, whether it's like young creators or even established creators that like a format on YouTube is a key that unlocks kind of the world.
It's true.
It unlocks the world on YouTube.
If you can find a format.
If you can find it. And we're all looking for it. Some people like, you know, I brought up Rhett and Link earlier. Once Good Mythical Morning has been running for over a decade. Once they found that format and unlocked that key, it's like, boom, now the world unlocks to them.
Yeah.
And And so I'm curious to hear the story behind VFX Artist Reacts and how you find that format in 2019 and what that has done for the business.
Well, so we had gone through a lot of different formats by that point. And format's maybe a bit of the wrong word to use, but you're always trying to figure out what's going to click with people, and you're always experimenting. Or at least we were. We would rarely do sequels to our stuff, to the point where it's like we'd make a video that would go mega viral, and be like, "That's really cool," and then we would never make a follow up. And you'd have like 5 YouTube channels doing the exact thing. Like our real GTA video is a great example. Like we made that video, it blows up, gets the most views in 24 hours out of any video I've ever had, which is say got 4 million views in 24 hours. And we're like, that's great. And we never made another one.
That's because you scratched that itch.
You're we scratched that itch. Like, we're done. We did it. It's like what he showed the world. It's like, it was the first video to really use a gimbal camera to mimic a third-person video game view, which is one of the things like when we had a gimbal camera, like, oh, this is just like a video game camera. We need to make this before anybody else does, So boom, go out there, do something new. Nobody's ever seen it before. Blows up. Of course, we're in LA, which is where GTA is. It's so serendipitous, right? It all just comes together. And then we make it, it blows up. And then like a bunch of other channels come out where people just take a gimbaled camera, stick it behind themselves, and then just a life in GTA. And just week after week after week, they just make those videos, which to me actually sounds a little bit like torture.
That's also like the plight of an artist. Yeah. Because an artist goes like, that was cool. I just kind of made something new. Yeah. Like Colin said, like I scratched that itch. I'm good. Now where can I make something new again?
Right.
And that's like at odds with how YouTube works.
Right. That's the opposite of a format.
That's the opposite of how it works. Yeah.
Our format is to come up with a new format every day. So needless to say, like, at a certain point, our main channel, Corridor Digital at the time, I guess, which is no longer really our main channel, even though it has more subscribers. Our format was effectively, take something new or take something familiar, do a novel twist to it, kind of visually and cinematically, and release it. Which is not to say that's not very much of a format. So like we're kind of reinventing viral videos every single time we'd make a video. And we did it enough that we felt like we kind of, we had a 50-50 chance with every video of doing it. It was never guaranteed, but like we didn't feel like we were shooting in the dark every time at a certain point. It's like, yeah, this is gonna be a good video. This one's going to get some views. This one's going to be viral. Like you kind of knew. And like we were doing it consistently enough where we kind of felt like we could just perform when we needed to perform. And that was kind of how our business format worked. And then after kind of like the era of game streaming kind of started on YouTube, after that came the Vine collapse and all the Viners came over to YouTube and vlogging became a thing on YouTube. Yeah. And we held out for a while. And then once again, I give credit to my partner, Jake. He's like, we need to start doing something like every other day. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how long it is. Doesn't matter how good it is. We just need to start doing it. And we're like, I don't know, man. Everything we do is so high effort. He's like, just put it on the second channel, which was at the time the Sam and Niko channel. Just put it there. It doesn't matter. It's not like the channel gets that many views anyways. Like, okay, fine. And that was the whole like foray into we're going to make vlogs. We're not going to care about how long they are. We're going to make them good. Of course, we're going to apply all of our tricks of like movie storytelling to the vlogs. But if I only have time to make a 30-second vlog, then that's all that comes out. Like all that matters is that it gets done. Make them as good as you can, but just get it done and make sure it's short enough that it can be good. Like don't put out junk, make it good. So we started doing that every other day, just putting out vlogs. And we did that for like a year. And I remember, starting off, it's like 14,000 views, 15,000 views, 20,000 views, 28,000 views, 60,000 views in one day. What? That's crazy. And I remember like Carmichael's like, when can I get a new camera? This one's old. Not very good for vlogs. I was like, when you get 2 videos that get 100,000 views in a row, we'll get a new camera. And it took a while, and we eventually had 2 videos get 100,000 views in a row, which was kind of an anomaly. It was another long time before we had another 200,000 views in a row, but he got his new camera. And that just got us into this mindset of like, just make stuff, just make it fast, just get it out there. You can still do the high effort stuff on Corridor Digital, the YouTube channel, but on the, eventually we named it Corridor Crew because it's about us in the office. Just make stuff, just get it out there. And then that started to change. It was like, okay, this is working. We're building an audience. We can see what they like and we can see what they don't like. We can see what they like us doing. We can see what they don't like us doing. Now it's time to start putting effort into this. Everything else we do is high effort. Now it's time to start making this high effort. So we started getting a little more like refined. We started writing the videos. We started putting goals into them as an artist where maybe you're making a video essay. I remember I did a video essay about how, when people would post things to Reddit, they would just post video clips, GIFs, etc., 0 credit to people and, get 1 million views and that'd be that. And I was really feeling this like loss of like, as an artist, like the best thing you can have is for somebody to watch your work. And it's cool if they're watching it on a site like Reddit, but they never know who made it and they never go and watch more of your stuff. So I made a whole video essay about basically stealing content on Reddit, but with this kind of like uplifting educational tone of like, if you want to support an artist, once you see a clip, make sure there's a source posted or ask for a source. And if you really liked it, the greatest compliment you give to that person is to go to their page, wherever it may be, and look at a few other of their things. And that's it. If you look at somebody else's artwork after seeing one of their pieces, that's the greatest compliment you can give them. And like that changed a little bit of like the culture, you know, a little bit changed the culture on Reddit, and sources became more prevalent and things like that. But that was like kind of what that channel became, is these pointed videos that had goals, and they're still quick, and they, you know, weren't like the huge high effort cinematic pieces that was on Corridor Digital. But in that process was this idea of Carmichael's idea. Once again, actually it's Nick and Carmichael were like, hey, what if we did like a GQ style or Wired style, like kind of reacting with you guys? The Sonic trailer just dropped. Everybody's talking about, you know, how bad it is. Why don't we get you guys to sit down and actually put a critical eye on it as VFX artists? And so, okay, we did. And we just didn't do that. We also did Detective Pikachu and a few other clips, kind of talked about why they were good, and we compared and contrasted. And it was just a regular Sam and Niko video, like every other one. But when that one came out, it just blew up. And it was one of those things, like, it has Sonic the Hedgehog in the thumbnail, like at the height of like the Sonic drama. And it's got Pokemon in the thumbnail. You know, it's like, it was the perfect storm of like a popular experience with a new perspective from only a certain kind of person who can give that new perspective. And that blew up. We're like, that's crazy. And we'd already had other vlogs blow up once in a while. We put a camera on the end of an arrow, and that got like 15 million views or something like that.
I mean, that sounds really cool. That's
really
exciting.
Cool.
Yeah, that's exciting.
It led to a whole series of putting GoPros on things. Right. But after 1 week passed, I was like, we need to do the exact same thing one more time. Exact same name, exact same thumbnail format, exact same idea. Just let's do the exact same thing one more time. I know we never do it, but in this case, let's find some more visual effects clips to talk about. And I can't remember what the second one was. Might have been the Superman mustache or something like that. It was like some other famous VFX gaffe. And I remember that one going up, and I was on my way to play a Nerf game out in the desert. I was in the car, you know, it's like a 2.5 hour drive, and I'm looking at the YouTube analytics, and I'm like, 80,000 views in an hour is insane. We got 80,000 views in an hour, and it's not going down. We're getting 80,000 views the next hour, and the next hour, and the next hour. And it's just this giant, like, there's the views we get on a video in 1 hour that would take us a week, right? I was like, okay, the second one performed just as well as the first one. Don't change anything. Make it again. And that was the hardest thing, is like really emphasize, don't change anything. Because people are naturally like, well, let's do this. Let's try this. Like, no, do it exactly the same. We never do it. Do it exactly the same. And naturally things do evolve no matter what. You can't help it. And for the better. But that, like, the goal there was to just like do the exact same thing again and see what happens. And so I did it for a third week and performed exactly the same as the first two. And it was like, okay, we are never going to miss a Saturday. We're going to do this as long as we can until the numbers fall off. And here we are 6 years later. Numbers haven't really fallen off, so we're going to keep doing it.
and it hasn't changed that much. Like, if you watch the first one, there are so many core elements. Is the couch the same?
So we have two couches. The one we used at the beginning was this tiny 2-person couch with a third person like wedged in the middle.
Yeah, you guys are definitely tighter at the beginning.
So we don't use that couch anymore. Yeah. We have its sister couch, is the long couch, but it's been the same couch the whole time since.
But even like the cutting to the tight angles, like so much of it is so similar.
Yeah.
Why did you have a hunch then that this was something you needed to repeat again and again and again? Is this what was happening on YouTube and you were just hearing it, seeing it? Okay, we need to start. This is 6 years ago?
Well, it sounds like also performance.
6 years ago.
Right?
Yeah.
Like it performed.
But it's a mindset shift of like,
it was,
prioritizing performance.
So a lot of it's just driven by experimentation. It's like, oh, people like this one. Like, because, you know, we have a lot of videos that perform well, and we make a second one, they don't perform well. So it's like, let's just see what happens if we do this a second time. Oh, it performed well. Let's see what happens if we do it again. Weird, it's still performing well. Let's do this until it breaks, you know? There's a little bit of that mentality. There's a little bit of just the business sense, which is like, oh, this is really good for the business. We need to keep doing this. It's also like really fun. You know, it's me sitting down and trying to impress my friends with VFX clips at its core, and them doing the same to me. And it's kind of a podcast from there. And then it all gets edited down and refined, et cetera, until you have the show. But it's just really enjoyable to do, and something I would just naturally want to do. And we already kind of naturally did all the time with each other. And so it also hasn't changed that much because at its core, it's still that, and that's what drives it. But yeah, it was one of those things where I knew like if we could get like 1 million views a week off of a show, that immediately puts us into the upper echelons of YouTube. It makes things really consistent. It makes things good for getting brand integrations. It makes things good for our channel's notoriety. It's a positive all around. So let's keep doing it until it breaks. Also, we all really like doing it. Also, it only takes like a half day to a day of our time. And then we can still have the whole rest of the week to do other things. So it's like this perfect thing. And that's kind of what drove it and drove us to start doing it after we had those first few successes. And then since then, like it's definitely undergone subtle evolutions and little things that we're trying to change. You know, we've found that having guests is amazing, but makes the episodes underperform a little bit. But at the same time, it brings legitimacy to the show. So it's like this balance. It's like we need a guest once every like 3 to 4 weeks to 5 weeks to come in. And we love having guests and it's awesome. But it's also like, if we want the show to get more views, then it's just us.
That's interesting. I loved seeing Seth Rogen in the chair.
Yeah. Seth Rogen's amazing.
For me, it was just like, oh my gosh, like, like Seth Rogen, this guy that everybody knows,
reached out.
Knows my world too.
He reached out?
He reached out. Yeah. He was just like, hey, I'm a big fan of the show. And I was like,
yeah.
And then like, I realized, like, I said, wow, that's amazing. That's so cool. And you know, whatever. And then like half the day passes like, I need to ask him to be on the show. That's probably why he's talking to me. And I follow up with another message, and like a few hours pass and he doesn't reply. And then he's like, yeah, dude, if you didn't ask me, I was going to try to invite myself on the show. Like, yes.
That's so cool.
Yeah, but he's like the same reaction that you have of like, oh my gosh, he's a fan is the same reaction kind of I had seeing him like, oh my gosh, he's a fan like me. Yeah. It's so cool. Like it validates and connects the world.
Yeah. It's a little scary now because there's a lot of like people that I really admire in the world of film that are fans of the show. It's like,
that is scary. That is
and
scary.
Also, how much do you maybe shift and prioritize and bring them onto the show versus keeping the show what it is at its core?
Yeah, not to mention how rough do you get on their clips? You know, how sassy do you get when breaking down VFX?
So I do want to take a step back because you just kind of gave us the story of how this came together. Yeah. I think there's actually so many lessons in how it came together. I think the two biggest ones that stick out to me is like creative safety. Well, that's one, but it has two reasons that you guys, at least I perceive, you felt creatively safe. One is it was on a second channel. And typically creators, I'm speaking from my own experience, I feel way safer on a second channel than I do on the main channel.
Yeah, you got nothing to lose.
Right?
You said it doesn't get that many views anyway.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Yeah. And the other one is repetition and the framework that you're going to upload something no matter what. The safety of going, it doesn't matter how it does. We're just going to do it. Like the goal is not 1 million views. The goal is publishing.
Right.
And I think those two things combined is the only path to getting to a successful format is experimenting in a creatively safe container. Until you find it. And main channels are never creatively safe containers. They just aren't. They're terrifying.
Yeah.
Their stakes are so high. You mess up twice in a row and like your business might be gone. Or at least that's what you think in your head.
Yeah.
And so I think that's like two things that I pull from that is like, okay, if you're trying to find your format, like you need to be creating a lot because you have to, when you're in that, when that muscle is going of like, I need an idea, I need to make something, I need to press publish, you just have better ideas, you know, you're just in the flow. And then the other space is like when the stakes are low, you're going to find something.
Yeah.
So those are two things that feel important about it.
And you need to be able to try things because there are so many blind spots out there in terms of like creative opportunities, things that right now it feels like YouTube's saturated, right? There's so many people making stuff. But it's not saturated at all. It's so easy to break out on YouTube. It's always been easy to break out on YouTube as long as you can find that blind spot, the thing that no one else is doing yet, which they exist all over the place. And it's easy to forget about that when you're looking at all the trends, like, oh, I need to do this, and this is what's popular right now. It's like, nah, ignore all that. Just try things until something pops. And it won't take that long, you know? Assuming that you're like a competent like filmmaker, you know, make sure your shots are in focus, et cetera, first. But like, you know, once you're actually making stuff and it's like, it's not boring to watch, it doesn't take long if you're being experimental and trying things until something pops. And then try to be like, why did it pop? And try to like, you know, hone into it and then do it again. And you might not hit it right the first time, but eventually you'll kind of find like, oh, people like it when I do this thing. And then like, you know, and then eventually you'll be like, let me take a total 180 and now search in the dark until something pops again. And like little by little they do. And then you start to inform yourself more and more, like what works. And Actually, after you guys' podcast with Jack Conte, super inspired. I hit him up. We had lunch together.
Oh, no, nice.
We were talking about stuff. And, you know, we were talking about the whole blind spot thing, which is to say that, because he was talking about breaking on YouTube and how challenging it is. And there's so many creative ideas, just so many creative ideas that are just not touched, especially by people who don't realize they have a unique perspective. That, I still think it's not easy to break out, but it's not any harder than it has been. I think it's about the same. And it's easy to get discouraged on that and tell yourself that it won't happen, but no, just go and experiment.
I think one issue is creators spend too little time evaluating their own perspective. Like what you talked about, you said as one of the core tenets of YouTube is like, who are you and what do you bring to the table? And I think sometimes, you know, as we're talking about this mix of things that work, it's like find something familiar, but put your own twist on it. I think a lot of people are just going, find something familiar.
Right.
Stopping there and going, what you guys do really well is like, only you guys can be sitting on that couch.
Yeah. There's not a lot of visual effects artists that also have like years of vlogging experience
and friendship.
And friendship.
You guys can give each other shit, which is like, and you can laugh with each other. You know what's going to make each other, you know, react in certain ways. And so I think friendship and chemistry is a unique perspective.
And we're not employed.
And which
is actually important because then we can say whatever we want about the movies we're talking about.
That's true.
Yep.
I think it gets harder though for aspiring young creators because again, they see something, they copy it, but they don't have that perspective. Also because they're young.
Yeah.
Right. Like some of the best YouTube creators and some of the ones that have been around for the longest are great because they had a whole life before they started uploading, or they were living this whole life as they were trying to upload, right? Like you are a VFX.
Yeah, I had over 10 years of like
I would
doing
imagine
indie VFX before we even started a YouTube channel.
Probably a ton of channels and creators who only wanted to become VFX artists and VFX reaction critiquers because they watched your series, right? And that's a totally different lens and starting point in terms of perspective.
It is, but you got to start somewhere.
Totally.
You know,
I mean, we started out on YouTube definitely just trying to like copy and paste and put a little bit of perspective, but it wasn't enough.
What was your guys' inflection point? Not to just boil it down to one moment.
Yeah,
but,
no. I mean,
I'd be curious to see if we have the same inflection point.
So
creative, there's been many, of course.
Creative inflection point or just general inflection point?
The moment you guys felt like you reached an audience that had a sizable number and you could do it again.
Yeah.
Ooh, you could do it again. That's
always been that's always been hard for us. But I would say like when we brought this show to YouTube, because we were podcasting since 2018. And what I realized was that no matter what, on our hardest weeks, because we were essentially podcasting, trying to make YouTube videos here and there, but freelancing. And that's how we were making our money. And it wasn't much money, but that's how we were getting by. But even in our hardest weeks, when we had tons of like big projects, or even when we were editing a doc for NBC, and it's just like really grueling, we could still get a podcast out. And so,
but our YouTube format at the time were really intricate video essays.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I remember those.
We would place bets on a topic that we thought was interesting, go really hard at the edit, and put it out. And if it didn't do well, it was kind of devastating because you had to start up right again. And you're like, ooh, I'm not sure I can do that again at a reasonable pace.
It also makes you wonder, like, how much am I in this for the views?
Ooh, yeah.
You start having underperforms, like, I don't want to do it again. It's like, was I just doing it for the views?
Yeah.
So I think two things happened right as 2020 hit. One is we got this big deal with Samsung that it gave us enough money to basically not do freelance projects.
Nice.
So now it was like, oh, okay, our channel and the Colin and Samir brand is our only thing we do. It's amazing. And then the other thing was bringing filming the podcast and making that the format on YouTube, because that was a thing where we realized, oh wait, we can do this next week.
And probably kind of early on that filming and podcasting too, huh?
We were pretty early.
And we brought it to the second channel first.
Yeah, we did.
So we had a channel called the Colin and Samir podcast.
It's not called Samir and Colin?
That is called Samir and Colin now.
Yeah, it is. That's the Samir and Colin channel.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we actually have a Samir and Colin channel. So we brought it to the second channel first. We're struggling to get anything out on the main channel, and we're turning these episodes around in a day for the second channel, and they're getting 30, 40,000 views. We were like, man, we spent 2 weeks on the last video essay and it's sitting at 12,000 views.
Yeah. So you guys are learning the hard truth that time and money does not have any correlation with views.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a hard truth.
That's a hard truth. And sometimes actually effort does not have a correlation
Yeah.
A lot of times effort doesn't have a correlation. That's a weird thing, but you have to evaluate where the effort goes. Because for me, it was like effort in production and post is what I thought correlated to viewership. But actually it's like effort in pre-production, format creation.
Excitement and interest was actually what mattered the most, and how quickly we could get something out because we were maintaining our excitement and interest about the topic. Whereas with the video essays, after a week and a half, when you're deep in the edit, I'm just like, I don't even care. I don't even know. Do I even like this thing anymore? This is so hard.
And the extra polished graphics, the extra polished sound, is that really going to make somebody like share this with their friends more than they would previously?
I think Rhett and Link, I bring them up a lot because I think they talk a lot about, when we sat down with them, they talk a lot about cracking the format of Good Mythical Morning. And one of the main criterias of it was essentially producing it as if it was a live show so that there was not as much post.
Right.
Like the post is kind of like these graphic transitions here and there, but it's like, they were like, let's film something that it's entertaining to watch live. And if we can do that, then we can turn around the episode. Right. Because it's like, post is a very heavy thing. That can get you into places where you're like 2 weeks in and you're like, I hate this video. I hate it. You know? And then you're like, I don't want to do it again. And so I think even with VFX artists react, I imagine like, that's largely what the experience would be like if I was sitting in the room. It's a similar concept.
We'd seem less smart because there's an hour, 2 hour, 3 hours worth of us talking. It's just 15 minutes of it in the final version.
Even with this, right? Like if you were sitting in this room, this is what this experience is like. Right? Like, so I think that is if you could find something like that, it's really great. But then it's at odds with you as a filmmaker sometimes, right? If you got into this as wanting to be a filmmaker, it can be at odds, right? Because you're like, wait, hold on, where do I do that thing? So I think having an outlet for that thing is also really important.
But also the filmmaker background's a little bit of a superpower when it comes to doing things on cameras with lights and sound. You know, even if you're doing real-time stuff like the vlog or a podcast, it's just like, you know that like if I needed to make this interesting, I could. Like if I need to get a little crazy, you know, have a robot bust through that wall at any point, I could.
We could. That's your unique perspective.
You could.
I mean, not everybody, but VFX aside, like, there's things that you learn from filmmaking, from like, how do you make somebody care about a character? How do you make somebody care about your story? That applies to everything, you know, whether it's a vlog or not. Because to the person watching this on the other side of the camera, it's kind of all the same. We're all characters, you know, speaking lines of dialogue.
Oh, let's talk about that. Because I know we chatted yesterday before doing this about the first principles of YouTube. And I'm just curious if this is kind of like, you maybe did zoom out even further of like the first principles of storytelling and entertainment.
I mean, there's definitely like things that are good to do for YouTube specifically, but I think people get really caught up in the platforms. Like, no, it's not the first principles of YouTube. It's not even the first principles of filmmaking. It's the first principles of being interesting. You know, telling somebody a story around a campfire. Can you do that? And can you make your story worth listening to? If you can do that, then we're on a good start. But if you can't do that, then like, don't go and shoot it. Like, you know, hold up, you know? So, and that's the thing we talk about. Like, you know,
we've shot it so many times.
We've shot it and been like, we can make it interesting in post.
Make it interesting in post was definitely my move.
But that was like when we were writing stuff, when we were writing like fictional pieces, and we still do. Like the first time we'd be like, all right, I'm sitting on the couch, pretend there's a campfire here, tell me the story. And like, and if you can't, and it's not interesting, like, and you can immediately feel when you're telling the story, like, and then this happens and nobody's interested. Okay, I gotta fix that. You know, it's like, you know, immediately when something's not working. But like, if you can make that interesting, everything else will be fine. You know, your acting, shooting, etc. Like you said, there's no correlation between time and effort and money spent and then views. It's because all that really matters is, can you sit down around the campfire and tell an interesting story? And if you can, at least shooting with a GoPro is a step up. Now somebody else can hear it, right? Oh, now you got some lighting and a microphone. Now it's a little bit better. Oh, you got some actors, you got some cinematography. Like, you know, it just gets better from there. But if the campfire story is already good enough, like you're starting from where you need to start from, which is to say a good foundation. So all these like, you know, kind of fundamentals of YouTube really boil down to the fundamentals of filmmaking, which really boil down to the fundamentals of showmanship and just getting an audience to be interested and care about what you're doing. And that's where like a lot of my mindset sits, because people get really caught up in all like the surface level details. It's like we're worried about like the new little layer of snow on top of all the ice. It's like, worry about the ice. You know, the snow's important. You step on the snow, but worry about the ice too. That's all underneath that snow. And so, you know, it's things like, make sure you have a story arc. Make sure you have clear motivations for things. Make sure you're not being boring. Make sure your editing is like not wasting people's time. Make sure you're hooking the audience at the very beginning. I mean, in terms of fishing metaphors, your thumbnail is your bait. It's your clickbait, right? And they take a nibble, they click on it or they hover and they watch. It's just like the fish coming up and nibbling. You got to set the hook, right? You got to get them to stay. So how do you do that? Like within the first 15 seconds of the video, it's like you need to deliver something that's so interesting. And in a certain way, you need to deliver it for a person to be like, okay, I'm going to watch the next 15 minutes. And you need to constantly kind of like be resetting that hook throughout the video. But you need to figure out, how do you make that happen? How do you trigger somebody psychologically? Be like, okay, yeah, I'm interested. I actually care. And the same thing, like the same question can be asked multiple ways, and it might be completely flat one way and completely engaging another way, even though it's the exact same topic.
How do you put that into practice for VFX Reacts? Is there a specific intro or lines that are fresh in your head that exemplify that, like first 15 seconds?
The easiest way to put it into practice for VFX Artists React is to start the episode like this. Hi, welcome back to VFX Artists React. Roll the clip. That's how you get into it, VFX Artists React. Why are they there? To watch the clips and to watch us react to it. So anything else that's not that is just pain, right? Get it out of there and just get to the stuff that you want to watch. And, people like to sit there and be like, well, hi guys, what's up? My name is so. Like, that's all self-indulgent BS, right? Just the audience doesn't care.
I think what you guys do though, is you pick clips selectively that open up some sort of curiosity. I've seen a lot of intros where play the clip, you see the clip, and then it'll cut to you and you'll be like, I'm not sure I understand that one.
That's all natural. Right? That's not planned.
Well,
you're talking about the cold open?
Exactly, the cold open.
And that's taking a page from the world of cable television, which is, by the way, like TV has the masters. Like people on YouTube, they think they're fast. They think they're good. They think they can do a lot with a little. It's like, no, the world of TV, that's where the masters are. The stuff they turn around in like a week on television puts everything on YouTube to shame. Like Mr. Beast is like the closest, and he's got some crazy productions, but like the stuff in TV, it's nuts. Like Saturday Night Live, they turn around those shorts in 2 days.
Yeah.
2 days.
Yeah.
Like from beginning to end with a A-list actor and sets and cinematography, and it's broadcast on it. Like that's nuts. And there's nobody else doing anything like that in the world of YouTube. Close, but not like that, Anyways, tangent.
I actually think the same. I actually think the same applies for the world of unscripted too. Samir makes fun of me because I'm watching American Idol right now, but I'm always hooked on American Idol, and I think there's this conversation on YouTube that it's not enough time to tell someone's backstory or to get someone emotionally connected.
Yeah.
But if you watch one of the early auditions of American Idol, they're always clipped out on YouTube and they go incredibly viral. But someone's about to sing, and then they'll give you 30 seconds of their backstory, and no matter what, you feel like this is their last chance to correct their life.
You just gotta watch,
right? Whether it's because of finances or just a relationship with someone, and you're hooked within 30 seconds. And I've always thought that. I'm like, oh, there's way more than enough time on YouTube. We're just not maybe learning from what's happening on television.
Well, hold on. I think that's an important thing of like, there's not enough time is ridiculous, because actually without it, it does like, of course there's enough time. That's what the time should be used for.
Exactly.
Like the time.
Exactly.
We give this feedback to Jimmy all the time. We talk to him about like, I need to know why this person needs this money. I need to know. It's interesting if somebody does something and wins $500,000, totally. But the reason I care is because of what they could do with that, what it could unlock, the stakes.
Like it's Campfire once again. Like all that game show is just campfire storytelling at the end of the day. And if you can't make it interesting around a campfire, Yeah.
Yeah, there's this show, we talked about this quite a bit. There's a show on Netflix called Last Chance U. And it's about these kids who go to like community college. They've been maybe kicked out of their like NCAA D1 scholarship, and they're trying to get, or they're like, never made it, and they want to make it to playing NCAA D1 football or basketball. And what they do really well in this show is like a quarterback will drop back, and right before he throws the ball, it'll cut and it'll go back in time to like him at home in a trailer park with his mom, talking about, how hard their child has been, how like he
realized that the mom was the one that always taught him how to throw footballs because the dad was never there. And then it turns out right before the game, she couldn't make it because she got sick.
Oh man.
Right.
And like if he gets into college, he'll be the first one to go to, get a college education, and he could go to the league, and then it'll snap back. and he'll throw the football and he'll miss it. He'll throw a bad pass. Now you're gutted.
Yeah. And now you're in.
Now you're like, oh, no.
Yeah.
And so
we call it no free throws without flashbacks. So that's in a basketball sense.
That's
but
great.
That, like, you shouldn't watch a free throw unless there's a flashback. Because just watching someone take a free throw, I don't care if they make it or not. Right. But if you flash back, then you care.
No, this is great stuff. Like, this is the exact kind of wisdom that needs to be applied to any filmmaking. But like, people will think that YouTube or TikTok or Instagram is special because like the format's like, no, it's like these core wisdoms must be applied.
Yeah.
And they can apply to anything. Like, you can do it. Like, I can go on the street and do like a magic show and use these same exact wisdoms to pull an audience around me. One of our techniques that we always use. So let's say we're doing a video based on reality, like a build video. Let's say in this build video, I don't know, I want to make a clay sculpture for some reason, right? Well, who wants to watch me make a clay sculpture? I'm not a clay artist, right? So we have our storytelling rules, which is, this is how you hook people into watching somebody do anything. The first thing is you state your goals. You know, I want to make a clay sculpture. Then you have to state, what's at stake if I fail to make this clay sculpture? If I don't make, this is a clay sculpture for my mom's birthday. It's her 70th birthday. It's a really important one to her. And this clay sculpture is going to make her so happy. She's had such a rough 2 years dealing with whatever, right? So this is going to change her life. That's what's at stake. It's my mother's happiness with this clay sculpture. I'm like, okay, this is a pretty important clay sculpture. But there's a problem. The clay is too wet. It's full of water. It rained last night and I left it outside for some reason and it's ruined, you know? And so now you're like, uh-oh. And then the last thing is like, so, you know, you state your goal. What's at stake if you fail? The problem now, and which comes after you list the stakes. So this is what's going to happen if I fail. But now there's a problem. I might fail. And then the next thing is, here's my plan to fix it. I'm going to take this clay and I'm going to put it in the microwave. Now, if the next clip is me doing something, taking the clay and putting it in the microwave, you'll sit there and watch me put that clay in the microwave. And you're going to watch it with intent. You're going to want to see how dry it is when it comes out. You know, it's like you're there, you're committed, you're fully suckered into it. And it's just, you know, classic storytelling. And you can do that with anything. And that's one of the big things of our vlogs is like, even if it's just you trying to like put together a storyboard, you just do that story. Like hit it like verbatim, word for word. I need to do this storyboard. This is what's at stake if I fail. This is the challenge I'm facing, and this is how I'm going to try to overcome the challenge. Now watch me make the storyboard. And it applies to anything, and it works and hooks people in. And filmmaking is filled with all these little tricks.
You worked with the South Park guys, right?
Yes, for a little bit, yeah.
So they have this concept that follows that very well.
Yeah, it's and then?
No, but therefore.
But therefore,
yeah. But therefore, right? Because but therefore is essentially, you know, what you're talking about. It's like, I need to do this. This is at stake, but here's the problem. Therefore, I'm going to do it like this.
Exactly. They say, you know, if your story goes, this happened, then this happened, then this happened, then this happened, you're fucked. You don't have a story.
Yeah,
basically. And how they try and plot out their beats and make sure that it's, you know, this happened, therefore this happened. So there's some cause and effect, but then this happened.
Yeah.
And so they try and make sure they put the words therefore and but between their story points.
Yeah, the change of expectations.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's really good stuff. And like, that's the psychology that filmmaking taught me that drives every piece of media, you know, whether it's books or TV or films or whatever, it drives everything. And I think the more people realize that there's these fundamentals that aren't just relegated to like, oh, it's a YouTube thing or it's a TikTok thing or whatever. It's like, no, there's like fundamentals of just making another person interested in the BS you're about to tell them for the next 10 minutes. It's like, you know, once you learn those fundamentals, it's, you know, you can do it anywhere.
I still think it's so important to recognize like what we are doing is only slightly novel, if novel at all.
Right.
Like we are making a radio show right now. The novelty is actually just that there's not like necessarily a network and an editor-in-chief who's listening back to it and making sure it's good enough to air.
The topic's novel. And the topic presentation's a little bit novel. Yeah.
But the medium is not as novel. Like even YouTube videos or shows, like you're making a show with VFX artists react. And like, I feel like even when I was growing up, there was versions of that show, whether it was on like
Movie Magic.
Yeah, exactly. Or like, I feel like there were like IGN shows or stuff like that we watch. It's like, all right, there's a version of that show that has existed on television in the past that you're making. And so I think you can look back at the fundamentals of those shows, like you said, or even looking at TV and being like, how do they make me care about a character?
Mythbusters is a great
Mythbusters is a great comp.
Nailed so many formats that drive all build and science videos on YouTube today. Everything from like, what's the plan? Here's the blueprint. Here's the plan. It's like to like showing some like cold open clips, like, and also something's always going to explode. You know that something's going to explode, and they'll show you it right before it explodes. Like, if I say to the end, I'll get to see something blow up.
Right.
It's like these are all essentials,
and even that's important. Of like the familiarity of an episode of like when you watch The Office, if like Jim doesn't look at the camera and give that look, you're kind of like bummed. You're like, what's wrong with Jim? I'm here for that thing. Like, give me that thing. So I want to talk about the concept of like shows and formats because like you guys obviously VFX Artists React became a show, and then you go into like variations of that show, right? Stuntman Reacts or going into that. But I think like just to iterate that or to emphasize that on YouTube, making a show is essentially making a titling convention ad lib. It's a very very important thing to recognize that like as a creator, you are searching for your ad lib.
Right.
Where like you guys now, when you sit in a brainstorm, can go VFX Artists React to fill in the blank. And that's huge because now you've created a canvas that you can get creative within. The scary thing for a YouTube creator is what you guys used to do, which is like, blank page. What are we doing next?
Scary, man.
But I think it's important to recognize like that is a show on YouTube. It's like a titling convention, a thumbnail convention, a framework that you get to get creative within and build. And then you can iterate on it like you guys did with Stuntman Reacts. And, I just wanted to emphasize that because I think that's like that is the unlock thing.
Shows are really important. It depends a little bit on what media you're trying to make, but generally speaking, and you guys have said this too, consistency really matters.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, the audience matters the most. It's how is an audience going to care about your work if you're sporadic, hard to reach, and aren't in the same spot every time? It's like they're not going to be able to find your stuff. And so, you have people like Ian Hubert, who is a fantastic artist and has an audience, but he's not consistent. But he's also very present and available in a certain spot. So you can always go there. And I should take back, he's not consistent with his like big videos, but he is consistent with posting work.
Sure.
You can always see what he's up to. So I take that back. He's actually pretty accessible. And like, this is a big thing I've been thinking about too, is I feel like we're approaching the death of the studio. In the sense that like a brand name or logo that's used to encapsulate a group of people doesn't really make sense anymore. It's like, why would I need to hide all the real people behind this logo? Why not? Here's the people. I'll just call them out by name. You get to know this artist. They're the ones making your movie. It's like, that's what we're seeing more and more of. And, that's basically what YouTube is people, right?
Broadcast yourself.
Yeah. And granted, like, we're called Corridor Digital.
Yeah, I was going to say, you guys are
Corridor Crew, but still at the same time, you go in, it's like, it's Niko and Sam and Ren, et cetera, et cetera. So like, it's still people. It's not like Corridor Digital that we just have a rotating, group of workers coming through. Like, that's not what it is. But that's kind of what Disney Animation Studios is, And they're working to like pull in kind of like big names and like kind of keep them there. But that's going to be a struggle for all these companies because at this point, why would you care about a logo when you could actually care about the artist?
So I think what's interesting there is you talk about Disney, and obviously like Disney has Disney Plus as a streaming platform. Like you guys have Corridor Digital as a subscription platform.
Yeah.
Right? Like where you go, okay, I can watch the content on YouTube. It's ad backed on YouTube, but I can actually subscribe and go into this. Like, it looks like Netflix. Like you go in and there's a bunch of different shows and there's a whole catalog of content.
Yeah.
It's exclusive content.
It's live content.
Yeah. It's a pretty robust environment you guys are essentially an indie streamer.
Yeah, we are.
Right?
Yeah. We made it whenever it's like, why would I need another streaming service? It's like, well, here we go.
Yeah. No, but it's a good question because like, why would I need another streaming service? It's a really interesting question, but it works right now.
Yeah.
It's working. Like you guys, Nebula, the Try Guys, like with Second Try, that was launched, I think, last year. Yeah. And it's like really successful for them. And it's an interesting moment in time where people are voting for what they want and with their wallets and going, I'm a subscriber to Corridor Digital. So can you talk about that, like the streaming service? And
I think it's an aspect of the like entertainment economy. It's super important. And honestly, it's very healthy to have. And we all, the whole streaming service thing is like coming off the baggage of cable television, right? And it's like, it's really important to remember where media was. We talk about where media is and where it's going. And so people being like, I don't want all these streaming services. It's like, well, that's coming off the backs of paying, $80 to $100 a month for a big package of, cable channels that nobody wanted, right? And so it's convenient and it's nice, but in reality, what we want is we want to be able to get the media we want from the people we want to make it. That's really all we want. And we want to do that conveniently. And if you have to go and pay, like coredigital.com is $4 a month, right? If you got to go pay us $4 a month to get the media that only we are making because, it's a finite world with finite people. There's only so many people like us out there, right? Then so be it. It's $4 a month and it's a website, coredigital.com, done. You're there, right? Yeah. Or it's an app on your phone. You click it once. It's just as hard to access as anything else. So it's not really a problem. It's not really a distribution problem. It's not like you have to run another cable line into your home where you would back in the day if you wanted, et cetera. So the idea that more streaming services are a problem, I think, is pretty misguided. In fact, I think it's great that people are now directly paying the people making the media that they want to see and removing these middlemen and gatekeepers that were there, which is the whole promise of digital video and the internet when it comes to entertainment, is not to have gatekeepers for this stuff. And so like the idea of still having gatekeepers kind of sucks. I'd encourage people to get away from Netflix and Hulu and Max. And like, yeah, they have great shows. By all means, subscribe and watch them. But like, go and support local creators. Go and support independent creators. Support the people directly that make the brain food that you eat, Yeah. So for us, the website, it has been successful. It's not like hugely successful. It's not like it's crushed everything else we do, but it's become a very important leg of the business. If our revenue streams were legs, our table would have 3 legs. And on top of that table is our livelihoods. One leg is just YouTube ad revenue, right? Yeah. Get as many views as you can, hopefully for monetizable views, and then, sell your ads. And it's a chunk of money. It's not gargantuan, but it's not small. It is very much dictated by your views, which is tough because sometimes you want to make stuff that's not super view algorithm oriented. Then the other big leg of our business is brand integrations. And we try to make a point to have a brand integration in every single video we make. And this is a little bit inspired by Sean Duras back in the day. He and I were working together on a project, and he's talking about launching his vlog. He's like, I made a point he's like, I told my guys, sell as many integrations as you can for every single video, multiple integrations per video. I don't care really how low they are, just get every single video covered. And he's like, and then our next goal is to make brand integrations that are so fun that the people who ask us to do it, who commission it from us, enjoy watching it. It's like, not the audience yet. We're not gonna worry about the audience enjoying it. I just want the people who commissioned from us to laugh and say, that was really funny. I enjoyed that. It's like, once I've done that for a few months, now I have a back catalog of brands that are willing to work with me. And now I can start getting selective, and now I can reach out to people, and now I can confidently fill every single video's brand integration slot when needed. You don't have to take them for pennies on the dollar either by that point. But the whole idea was like, he just wanted to build connections. He wanted to reach out to all these different companies, make sure he could like have this bed of support to lie back on when he needed it. And so he just built. And we did the same thing when we got into our vlogs. We kind of got to the state where we could start selling stuff. It's like every video, sell a brand integration. Go. And Christian is the guy at the company who's in charge of all this stuff. And since then, he's built a nice catalog of different companies that like working with us, and we love working with them. We really go out of our way to make the videos fun to watch, not just for them, but for the audience as well. Like the rule is, it's all content. There's no pause advertised. Like, no. Like it still needs to be good to watch. Yep. It all needs to be fun to watch. In fact, a lot of our ads have become some of the funniest parts of the videos recently. But that whole notion, like, brand integration, like it was important. And so now we're at a point where it's like, we're not as reliant on views. They do matter, but I can make a video that gets 400,000 views rather than 1 million views, as long as there's a brand integration with it. And it's fine. It can be a more niche audience video. And 400,000 views is still a lot of people. So I like,
especially if it's the right people.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And I don't feel like, empty as an artist, like, oh, I only got 400,000 views. Like, totally. If maybe got like a couple hundred views, I probably wouldn't feel empty as an artist. It's like, you stand in front of a room of 100 people, you get nervous, right? So it's like more than 10 people is a lot of people. And even if you're getting 1 million views per video, getting 200,000, 300,000, like that's multiple stadiums full of people. Like, totally. So, I always walk away from that stuff feeling fulfilled. And then as long as there's a brand integration, the stress of needing to hit high numbers for the ad revenue goes away. So those are the 2 legs of the table. Table would fall over just on 2 legs. The third leg is the website. And if I had to like break down our percentage of revenue, I would say like 28%, 29% of our revenues from the website, probably 33% from ad revenue, and then the remaining 45%. Sorry, my math is not great on the spot, but you know, the remaining 40-ish% would be brand integrations. So they're a little bit bigger than the others, but they all effectively make up thirds of our business.
But I do think that the website provides a different level of safety.
It's very important. Website's very important.
Again, the thing is, like, let's say you lost 10% of the members to the website, which would be pretty dramatic. I don't imagine your churn is like that intense.
Yeah, it's not that intense, thankfully.
Yeah, but like, let's say tomorrow you lost 10% of them. It's not as dramatic as if you lost 10% of your advertisers, like meaning your brand integration partners. Right?
That'd be a sign that we're doing something very wrong.
That means like something's
deeply wrong.
And like the dollars would go like really fast. It would just be like a big deal if you lost.
Yeah, it could be a sign you're doing something wrong, but it could also be the market.
Could be the market.
Who knows?
Sorry, if you're talking about the website?
I'm talking about brand deals.
Oh, we're saying if you
brand integration.
So if you lost,
I thought you were talking about the website.
If you lost 10% of your subscribers on the website versus 10% of your partners in brand integrations, those are very different things to happen.
Yeah,
right?
10% of the website is like something's fundamentally wrong with our films, and like people are hating it.
Yeah,
whatever it is, like let's do some self-reflection. 10% of our brand integrations is like it might be outside of our control, or it just means yeah.
And so that's what's interesting is like that's in your kind of relatively in your control, and also like it's such a big pool of people that a couple of people canceling their subscription is not going to be that big of a deal. A couple people canceling their deals with Corridor Crew from brand integration perspective starts to become a big deal.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where like the safety or like if you can build a membership or a subscription or something like that, it gives you a bed of revenue to like experiment on top of. I really do believe that. And I think that is, if you can do it, it's so powerful. So you can also test formats there. You can make fun formats.
Lower lift formats.
Yeah. Like the Try Guys I was talking to them, they were like the best performing stuff in Second Try, their subscription platform, is not the stuff that works on YouTube. But they like making the stuff for Second Try, and it's really fun for them to make that stuff.
How do you handle the production though with only 12 to 13 people? Like that to me is what terrifies me about subscriptions. When creators launch subscriptions, it's taking that leap and going, okay, I am now committing.
Yeah, it's tough.
It's one thing to say, hey, you know, we're going to shift this brand deal. Can we shift it to next week or something, right?
It's been a lot of experimentation around that, and that part's really tough. What we found works best is just like with Good Mythical Morning, to reference Rhett and Link again. Hi guys, I don't know if you listen to the podcast.
Feels like they should like walk into they should like walk into the room watching right now. Yeah.
You know, they try to make the show something that you can effectively do live.
Yeah.
And the website is kind of something similar where it's like, all right, we're going to do an exclusive show for the website. Let's hire another production team of 8 people. It's like, no, that's not going to work. It needs to be like the live podcast, right? Being a website subscriber is where you get to join us for the live podcast, or for, deep dives into our workflows, which we do live every Friday. You know, we'll pull up in a project we're working on, and we'll work on it live and talk about it and do all, answer questions about the tech that we're, using. Or for example, VFX Artists React. It's our big show. It's our #1 show, right? So if lots of people like that show, give them more VFX Artists React. Give them extended clips. Give them the stuff that would be cut out for YouTube because general audiences are going to get bored. But if you actually like the show and like learning about this, like we'll put it in. It's like understanding that the algorithm on YouTube, like, wow. And the algorithm is, I know that it's really just the audience. It's what people want. The YouTube audience wants something different than like a hardcore audience that like wants to learn about VFX. And like kind of knowing that like you got 2 different audiences and there's a lot of overlap, but like the one on YouTube is going to be a little more streamlined, and the one on our website is going to have like an extra 10 to 15 minutes deeper conversations, but also like more goofs from us, just like goofing around. Things that people probably get a little tired of on YouTube. It's like, whatever, it's a website. So like we really try to build the website to be something where it enhances everything we have, but we're not trying to do an entirely new production. We're not going out like making a movie or a TV series right now for the website. So we already produce like 2 videos a week, plus a podcast, plus live streams, plus it's like,
that's crazy.
That's a lot. It's like, let's just make it good. Let's make it accessible on the website. Let's make it special. And let's also communicate that at the end of the day, we're all artists trying to make a living. You can do it through ad revenue, or you can do it through actually getting supported by the people who watch your stuff for a few dollars, which is infinitely better than any other way of making revenue.
I think at the core of it, like the audience is your boss.
Right. 100%.
Across the board. And so like, I think that gets muddled when you start getting paid a lot by a brand.
Yeah.
Because you're like, wait, are they my boss now because they pay me, or are they my boss? And so I think like the subscription or membership is really nice because it validates that concept that the audience is your boss.
Yeah.
Right. You are in a relationship with this group of people that likes your stuff, and they are paying because they like your stuff, and you make stuff for them. It's like a very clean relationship.
It is.
Whereas it's like,
it's how it should
this
be.
brand is paying me to make stuff for them.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't connect with them, they're mad. You know, the brand is mad because it didn't connect with enough of them.
Yeah. In an ideal world, your audience would just go to your website and watch your content. There wouldn't be any YouTube. There wouldn't be any Hulu. There wouldn't be like, they would just, a filmmaker makes a film. You can access it anywhere on the internet for free. So you just go to the website for that film and you watch it. Right. Now, of course, real world has distribution and, you know, all these other things you got to deal with. But like at its core, you don't have to actually deal with that. You know, if you wanted to make a movie, you can make a movie, buy a website, put up a credit card processing gate, and let people pay to watch your movie. Now, is your movie good enough to do that?
Right.
Can you pull people in? Those are all questions, but that has nothing to do with the website. That's to do with your movie, you know? So you don't need any of these other systems. You don't have to, like, we take it for granted, but you don't need them.
Is there a world where like a Disney Plus or Netflix, like in the classic, like most cliche terms of bundling and unbundling, does like a Disney Plus come to Corridor Digital and go, hey, you know what? We want to acquire your catalog and just bring it as a part of
I can see a world of that. I am surprised that no one's quite hit us up for like a VFX Artist React show on their platform. Maybe because it's already so accessible on YouTube, and like, why would you go anywhere else to watch it outside of YouTube and Corridor Digital? But it is such a show format. Maybe it's the IP and like copyright issues.
Yeah, there's probably too many
fair use like
issues
there. Lines, but
I mean, a big subject matter of where things are going to go, especially in your category, VFX, is like this world of AI and how things start to change. Now, I do want to bring this up because we were talking about like the audience a lot, and we actually get this feedback quite a bit. We tweeted out about how we're sitting down with you, and a lot of the responses were like, "What should we talk about?" There was the biggest category was perspective on AI, and if you're aware that you've alienated a portion of your audience based on your perspective on AI.
I don't know. I'll be honest, I don't know if I alienated a portion of our audience, because I think anyone who's watched this stuff for years and years and has seen us messing with AI recently, like, I was doing deepfakes in 2017.
Right.
Yeah. If you're going to come and be like, are you alienating me? It's like, were you not watching any of my stuff?
Yeah. I don't know what, so you know, I want to be empathetic towards the audience because we get that feedback too. Because I am kind of like, I don't know if I'm an AI optimist as much as I'm an AI realist, where I'm like, hey, these are tools that are here, they're happening. Like, what's the alternative option?
I have a lot of feelings about AI because I feel like a lot of people have used it in a way to stir up rage and drama. I feel like there's a lot of imaginary discussion around AI. I feel like there's a lot of performative discussion around AI. Because first off, what AI are we talking about?
Sure.
Yeah. ChatGPT? Diffusion models?
Google Maps?
Image segmentation? Like, what AI are we talking? Like YouTube machine learning?
Instagram?
It's like,
totally.
What AI? Like, we're talking about an imaginary boogeyman here. AI.
Like, I think what people are talking about when they say that is generative AI in the context of image, right?
So and diffusion models?
Text, probably diffusion models that are producing work that has historically been a human craft.
And based off of work that was not necessarily credited or paid.
Yeah. But once again, it's producing images. But is it producing work? Like...
Sure.
It's one of these, like, I don't see it. I see the discussion. I see a lot of like imaginations of what it could be. And I see a lot of rage about that imagination. And people imagine this and imagine that. And they go into town. And I see the reality, which is I'm not using diffusion models right now for my videos to like make an image. I might use it to try to see if I can like generate a texture file or like a background matte painting element to make it like sit in the picture better. But like, it's not making my art. It's just a tool. I don't actually use ChatGPT. I use Claude and Gemini currently, but like I'll use that to I'll use AI to take a script writing session where we verbally talk through the script. I record it with my iPhone, get it transcribed AI, and then take that transcription into ChatGPT or Claude or whatever and be like, please take this transcription, clean it up, give me it broken down by speaker, and then outline the bullet points of the thing. And also for the script, make it verbatim what we say. And so then it does. And I've just saved myself 2 hours of sitting at a computer typing out the outline. Totally. I get to stay creative. But once again, it's all my words. I just had it formatted, so it's like, there's a different kind of AI, but it didn't make the art. Or, for example, anime rock, paper, scissors, which is kind of like our breakup piece, the most controversial thing.
Yeah.
We wrote it, we shot it, we did all the costumes. For the first one, we used a different movie's art style. We used Vampire Hunter D, which a lot of people got angry at. But once again, it's like, why weren't you angry at us using video game models? Why weren't you angry at us using other movies' IPs? Like, it's a 6-minute short on YouTube that's experimental using a brand new piece of technology about 2 guys playing rock, paper, scissors. It's like, that's what we do. We experiment. We're not worried about like who owns this stuff right now because we're experimenting. We're doing visuals. And at its core, like I consider myself an artist and I do art. I'm not really going to let somebody be like, oh, that's off limits. You can't use that. It's like, I'm going to do whatever I want. I'm going to make art. And if you don't like it, that's fine. You can go watch someone else's art or come back and watch it once I make something that you do like. That's totally cool. But I'm going to experiment. And something that felt weird to have like politics around the programs I'm using.
When you've always been experimenting.
I've always been experimenting. And it's like, we were completely transparent about the process. I was like, yeah, I use frames from Vampire Hunter D. The whole point was to like, can I take an animated movie and apply it to this? Like, it's not about ownership of the content. I didn't say I made Vampire Hunter D. I didn't say I owned the style or anything like that, right? Nobody had even done that before. Nobody had ever trained in a style to begin with. I didn't even know if it's possible when we started this project. And as an artist, you don't want to just use other people's stuff and call it yours. It's not fulfilling. Any real artist wants to make art and you want to make new stuff. We've been talking about this whole time. It needs to be novel. And you don't get novelness out of somebody else's generative AI model trained on other people's work. You're going to get a derivative of other people's work until you look deeper beyond the generative model fluff. And you go like, oh, but there's an actual technology here that recognizes visual patterns. And so if I design visual patterns for a style that I want, I can then have it repeat those visual patterns in a way I can control. So ignore all the BS fluff. Ignore all the talk about like, well, ChatGPT is making billions of dollars off of copyright. Ignore that. Look deeper. That's all fluff. If you're an artist, look deeper. Look at what tech is actually there. Oh, here's a tool that lets you repeat an image multiple times. Here's a tool that lets you track an image across moving frames. Here's a tool that maybe lets you do better light blending, et cetera, et cetera. Like, like people get caught up in like the fact like, yeah, you can train copywritten material into these things. You've always been able to like use copywritten material for things, whether it's putting copywritten music in your video, putting copywritten art in the background of your, on your posters and your set design. Like, you've always been able to do it. You've always been able to rip off artists. That hasn't stopped and it's not stopping now. And like, so don't rip off artists. Nobody wants to see people rip off artists, but it's like the core technologies here are something that's way more interesting. It's like CGI. It's like, oh, I can, put in polygons, I can put in lights, I can do material shading settings. And now suddenly I can use computation on a computer to create an image. And whether we're talking about diffusion models or like autoregressive transformer models or large language models or what have, like, the list goes on. Like, these are all different technologies that manipulate imagery in different ways. And that's where people need to be thinking as artists. And that's not where the dialogue is right now. And because it's turned into, in my opinion, like, while there's real issues to be settled, there's also a lot of performative drama going on around AI. Like, once again, AI. Which AI? I've been using AI since 2011.
Performative in terms of like identity-wise, I am someone who's pro-artist. I protect artists.
Yeah, that and just like, let's get mad at something. What can we get mad at? Like,
I think there's also fear connected to it. Fear of replacement. I think fear of job loss.
Getting left behind even from a skill set perspective, right?
Yeah. But I also see it as like, it takes a lot of the pain out of the creative process, which is so great. Like, I think about when I used to load in footage myself when I was cutting stuff. And then as we built the company, it's like, Jesse's really good at organizing a project, color grading it, making sure it sounds good, putting selects in a sequence, and then going, here's the timeline. That's so much better than you now get to be really creative with the materials at your disposal. And what you just said about how you use even Claude or like to take a meeting and transcribe it. It's like, well, now you get to the next part, which is so much more fun. If you did that transcription and outlining, you might be like exhausted mentally at the end of that and be like, I'll come back to this tomorrow.
Yeah. Not to mention that like sitting there and like dealing with formatting and just trying to write stuff out, remember it. Like, none of that's creative.
Yeah.
You know, but it may sound like I'm a little like worked up and a little dismissive of some of this stuff.
Yeah, sure.
But it's just like, I was at the spearhead seeing all these different people say so many different things that so much of it not at all accurate. And just like, I can see all this anger that's not only manifested and, you know, coming from all these different places, but I also saw a lot of people like utilizing that anger for views and perpetuating it. And like,
I see.
No care whatsoever for any sort of accuracy of how any of this works, truth, education, any of that stuff. It was just rage. And so at this point, I'm very like, whatever, like watch my stuff or don't, you know, like I'm an artist. I'm not treating anybody unfairly. I'm not stealing anybody's art, you know, but AI is a cool tool. I like computers. I do visual effects. I've always liked computers. I've always done this kind of stuff. And like when you say like AI is starting to change the industry, it's like, no, it's computers. And computers have been changing the industry for 30 years. Yeah. And it's just continuing.
There was a time where
it was like a boom, just changed all of a sudden.
Like cutting film and what it looks like today is dramatically different. That's like, because of computers.
You want to talk industry shakeup, talk digital cameras. Talk nonlinear editors.
Right.
You know, it's like talk being able to use a PC for hardware that you had to be previously buy, you know, special $100,000 machines for. Like that shook up the industry.
Or talkies.
Yeah, right. Like, audio, dude, synchronized audio, color,
wiped out a bunch of actors. You know,
broadcast like, TV,
they're gone. So you guys are 15 years in right now. Yeah. Obviously, you still have a lot of energy towards new ideas, which I love.
100%.
I love that. I love that you
never stopping.
You still like, let me grab a camera and make a thing.
Yeah.
How long do you anticipate like doing this and what's
next?
Till you die. I love that.
I mean, look, I'm not gonna grind out a video every week until I die, but I'm always going to be making stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and our experiments aren't always VFX. You know, I just did an experiment with how do I describe this in a way that's easy to understand? Okay, so you know acrylic, clear acrylic panels, people like etch the acrylic panel and they'll put like LEDs on the edge, the etching lights up because it kind of has that fiber optic effect. Like you'll see it with like exit signs. There's not one in here, but you know, like they'll have like a green line on the edge and it lights up. So it emits light, right? It's additive color space. Your TV emits light. It has red, green, and blue pixels. So what if you made an acrylic piece that was the red channel of an image and you lit it with red LEDs, and then another acrylic piece behind it that's the green channel, and an acrylic piece behind it that's the blue channel? You can effectively make a full color edge-lit acrylic etching because red, green, and blue are all you need to interfere with each other to make all the colors of the rainbow for your brain. So I did. That's like one of my projects.
Your brain works so differently than my brain. I was like, what?
Well, that's crazy. To be fair, like RGB color science is like the foundation of like everything we do with visual effects. So this is just kind of a manifestation of that, like in physical form. But that doesn't have anything to do with filmmaking. It's just like, I want to do it. It's a cool idea. Make a video about it, make it educational, talking about color science, things like that. Justify being able to make it and spend the time on it, for the channel. But yeah, I'm always trying to do new things. I'll probably make a movie I've already made movies, but like I'll probably make another movie at some point. I don't have any desire to like lock into like a 2-year grind to make a movie right now. Also, I think the idea of a movie having to be a 90-minute long or 2-hour long 2-year endeavor is also a bit antiquated and changing. And at the end of the day, in an ideal world, if I make something, it would just go out for free to everybody, right? Like ideally the movie's not so expensive that it forces me to have to recoup budget.
Yeah.
Ideally the movie's so cheap, I'm doing it for fun and I just put it out there when it's finished. I make my living through the Corridor Digital and Corridor Crew YouTube channel, and the movie is something I make as an art form.
Actually, that has a lot of promise for the future of filmmaking. Because if filmmakers are making media, right? Like, because like making a show on YouTube is making art, of course, but it's making media. It's a repeatable format that can be sponsored, that, can be predictable in some way. Art is unpredictable in some ways, right? It's like, who knows what it can be, but it might show a lot of promise that if you are able to pay your bills as a filmmaker through a show, through media, something like that, you have time and space to do this other thing and no financial burden on it,
right?
Like no financial stakes on it, where it's like, if this movie doesn't do well, I'm not eating.
Right. Ideally making a movie becomes like writing a book or making a painting where it's, it's like, it's not like, oh, I have to raise $500,000. It's like, no, just go shoot it.
So what do the studios do then? What does Hollywood do?
They're not going to be here.
That's like,
actually, no, I take that back. The studios will be here because there's always the stars and there's always like the big shows, and somebody's always going to be good at putting together those big shows. And that's really what the studios will be. And they were back in the day. And I think that shifted a little bit with the whole blockbuster business model. because movies were definitely not like that back in the 80s. You still have your big hits, but like the whole blockbuster model that we have right now is very much a 90s invention. And movies are always changing too. But yeah, there's always gonna be somebody who can like put on the big show and get everybody to fill the seats wherever they may be, whether it's in a theater or just at home watching. It doesn't matter. Like, you know, there's the A-listers and there's the B-listers like me, you know? So that stuff's always going to be there. But I read a book recently and it was about magicians at the turn of the century, late 1800s, early 1900s. And the amount of parallels between magicians and YouTubers was mind-boggling. And it's not like explicitly stated in the book, but you'd see little things. You read about like somebody coming up with a format and it's like all the rage and somebody else takes the format and expands upon it. And then like you'd have magicians who just have a story they need to tell and they would find whatever mechanism would work for the story to make the trick work. And then you have other magicians who like discover a really cool mechanism and they'd come up with a story that could utilize that mechanism, which is a lot of how we come up with our videos. It's like, oh, here's a really cool effect I can do. What stories does this unlock? And so it's just funny to read that and kind of the parallels between visual effects and digital filmmaking and the whole idea of like trying to get butts and seats at the music halls. And we might be going back to that, you know, it's like,
yeah, I agree.
The more artificial media or the more that media becomes artificial, the more people want authenticity. And what's more authentic than sitting in a crowd with real people looking at a real person on stage?
It is one of our firm beliefs that is like the creators who are going to make it are going to be the ones who can fill a stadium or fill a theater.
Right.
For sure.
It's a human
we
connection.
were just talking about it on one of our last episodes too, that sort of what happened to music, right? Where like, Napster came about, there weren't CD sales as much. So like streaming came about, couldn't make as much money from streaming. Where do musicians make their money? Live touring. And we're being like, oh, is that going to be the future for people who make video?
Maybe.
Like whether it's showcasing video in theaters or getting out in front of people.
Yeah. No, I think that's super important. I think at its core, we're human beings. It hasn't changed regardless of how much technology has changed. And I'm looking back, the past 100 years of filmmaking, right? We like stories a certain way, and there's certain life lessons that we learn, and there's certain ways we glean experience from like using other people's experience or the facsimile of a person, and that's not changing. The way we do it, whether it's through video games or movies or 10-minute shorts or long, like 5-hour epics, like it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, we're still kind of trying to do the same thing. We're people making things for people. And, I guess if I could talk to like the people who feel like I lost them when, we experimented with AI and stuff like that. At its core, this whole thing is just people making stuff for people. And we're just experimenting with whatever tools let us do things. And, times change, programs change, techniques change, mediums change. But once again, it really only moves at the speed of people. So if people want this thing, whatever this thing may be, that's the thing that will come to be. And if people don't want it, it's not going to be. Like, at its core, it's a human being has to hit the button to make the thing happen, whether it's an AI thing or deciding to go out and shoot something or, whatever. It's people making and consuming the art. And that's what it's always going to be. And that just won't change. The tools we use will change, but the whole point of it won't,
I love that. It's a good place to stop.
Yeah.
If we don't stop, we'll just
keep going.
You'll never go home.
Keep going.
Yeah, you'll never get It's also the human who has to choose when to press stop. Which we have to do at some point. That was our cue.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, thanks for having me on the show, guys. I really appreciate it.
Dude, thanks for coming on. This was awesome.
Yeah, and thanks for listening to me, everybody. I'd love to hear what people's thoughts were on what was said.